The continuing escalation and sophistication of cyber attacks is highlighting the increasing importance for state government officials and private sector enterprises to band together in a so-called whole-of-state approach to mount a sustainable cybersecurity defense. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and joining us to talk about that today are Ryan Murray, Deputy State Chief Information Security Officer for the state of Arizona, and Jennifer Pittman-Leeper, who also goes by JPL, and who has the title of Whole-of-State Strategist for State and Local Governments and Education for Tanium. Ryan and Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Ryan, I'd like to start with you. Can you just set the stage a little bit about what we're really talking about when we say whole of state approach to security and what that philosophy really represents?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you for having us on to discuss this. The short version is exactly what it sounds like, right? We're looking at this from a holistic perspective of the entire state of Arizona, of how we can put together a collective defense to better support the entire state and all of the entities within it. So looking at all of our local governments, all of our cities and towns, all of our counties, and even our private sector entities within the state, how do we all come together to better support each other in a collaborative way?
And JPL, from your perspective and kind of an industry point of view, how does that impact what organizations like Tanium and others in industry are trying to do at the state level?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think exactly what Ryan said. It's coordination, it's standardization, and you bring together so many different people and entities. It's important to make sure that everyone's going one direction. I feel like it's the job of the private sector to help coordinate with their state partners to make sure that they're getting what they're looking for. You've got governance that has to be done. You've got implementation plans, and of course, validation. Make sure the plan that you had is actually working. But really, you're combining resources, our resources, their resources, the local entity resources, to find better ways to share information, to respond to incidents, to address workforce challenges, and of course, to standardize tool solutions.
And Ryan, back to you. I think the discussion around cybersecurity and IT has long brought in this idea of private and public sector organizations working together. What would you say is different, or how is this evolving when we start to really take a whole of state approach?
Well, and I would say this is really twofold, right? There's two major pieces to what this looks like when the private sector and the public sector come together to support each other. One is about providing better capabilities. There's no way that government entities can provide the best in breed cyber protections that our private sector partners are putting together with all of their research and development, all of their highly paid developers. It's just something that we frankly can't and don't want to do at the government level. So we need to work with our private sector partners to be able to provide these capabilities. And then secondarily, information sharing, as JPL mentioned, right? There's a ton of fantastic telemetry that our private sector partners are receiving. We're all being attacked by the same threat actors. So being able to collect and correlate all of that information across the entire state of Arizona, both government and private sector partners sharing that information with each other, helps us all to better defend each other.
That's a great point about the growing threat from adversaries on both the public and private sector sides. JPL, I'm curious, what's changed for organizations like yours in terms of working on a whole of state approach versus maybe what we used to see, not too long ago, working with individual agencies or departments?
Sure. So I think what's very important here is that you're looking for solutions that can fix a broad range of problems and challenges. But in order to do that, you have to partner with your groups and figure out what are the challenges that they're seeing. Where the private sector can really lean a hand here is they are partnering with so many different entities. We have a broad range of customer base, so we can take some of their experiences, some of their challenges, back to one of our partners like the state of Arizona and say, here's what we're seeing, here's what's working, here's what we need to do. It also will help us to develop better technologies when we understand the real challenges. Don't assume you understand the problem, but ask. And that's where those partnerships and those industry work groups become so very valuable to the public sector. We can take all of the information we have from our private sector customers, from our public sector customers, combine that information to really give a more valuable tool and solution.
Well, this is a question for both of you. Ryan, starting with you, can you talk about some tangible benefits that you've seen working together with the private sector? And then JPL, I'd be curious what you've seen from your side.
Yeah, so absolutely, as JPL mentioned, being able to take advantage of that breadth of knowledge that our private sector partners bring to the table, it's something that if we were focused only on what we're doing in Arizona or only what we're doing in specific portions of Arizona, we'd be missing out on that bigger, broader picture of what some of our global or national partners are being able to see and bring in that wealth of knowledge. And we're absolutely seeing that provide tangible benefits to all of the partners that we're working with, because guaranteed Tanium and others that we've been working with have seen these sorts of problems crop up in other states and other communities. And we're not having to reinvent the wheel every time we go to work with one of these organizations. And frankly, being able to take advantage of the collaboration and the partnerships that have already been built, because a lot of these organizations we've talked to are already working with Tanium or other private sector organizations that we have started partnering with, and being able to build that relationship, not from the ground up, but starting with that organization of trust, just inherent to the conversation, has been super beneficial.
And JPL?
You know, it's hard when you're doing an interview with your former boss because you two know each other way too well. But Ryan really hit on something that has been the most valuable for us in partnering with Arizona, and that's that level of trust. You know, they're pulling back the curtain and they're telling us where they're really struggling. It's not to get people in trouble. It's not to shame them into, well, why aren't you doing a better job at this, that, or the other, but really to tell us what's going on. And when you have that level of trust and that collaboration, I think the private sector can help you much, much further than if we're making some assumptions and trying to fill in some blanks where maybe, you know, the whole story wasn't given to us. So I think that's one thing that we've appreciated the most about partnering with Arizona has been their transparency, their honesty, and letting us have access to talk to other people, other municipalities within the state so that we can hear from them firsthand. Here's exactly where we're challenged and here's what we need from you in order to help. That's how we're able to greatest provide what they need when we know.
That's a great point. Trust is so important these days. And then lastly, you know, Ryan, I think you'd agree a lot of states across the country are moving in this direction. What one or two best practices might you share with your colleagues out there about, you know, working in a kind of whole estate kind of philosophy and carrying that forward?
Yeah, so I would say critical to everything that we do as usual is communication. Go out and meet people and talk to them where they are. Don't just sit in your, you know, county or state seat and capital and assume what people's challenges are. Go talk to them directly and ask them, what are your challenges? What are your successes? How can we fit into your strategic plan for how to better protect and secure your environment and your citizens? And then secondarily, make friends with your legislature and your executive branch of government, because as most things, it comes down to funding. So if you don't have that capability to have that frank conversation of explaining to your legislators, explaining to your executives what that risk is across the entire state, they're going to have a hard time giving you money to fix those problems. So go in, have those conversations, communicate to them in a way that they can understand what the problems are and what those tangible benefits are going to be to their constituents.
And JPL, what additional best practices might you suggest for both state and local governments, and as well as the education sector?
I think first and foremost, like Ryan said, the communication is critical. It's about building trust. It's about leaning in and listening. Please don't view the private sector as an evil entity. They truly are here to help and they want to do what's right. I mean, think about it. At the end of the day, it's my data that's being held there as well. It's important to me that the cities, the towns, counties, and the state that has my data is well protected. So please understand that there are altruistic reasons for us protecting this information. Let the private sector do things that maybe the public sector hasn't historically been as good at. You know, when you're creating these industry work groups, let them work on some of the marketing pieces for you. Let them work on some of the communication and outreach portions that frankly the state or public sector just doesn't have the experience or the resources to do. That's an area where we would definitely love to partner just to get it up and running. But at the end of the day, just lean in. Tell us what you need so that we can help put it together for you. And then we want to, you know, also be able to share our concerns and our challenges with maybe what we're seeing you do. It's an open, honest dialogue.
Well, Ryan Murray and Jennifer Pittman-Leeper, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to share your insights and recommendations on ways to get better mileage and better benefits out of sharing information between the public and the private sector to improve cybersecurity. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.